Okay, so we'll just explain a little bit more about what we're hoping to do with this. It is very important because there will be so many people that will be affected by the Elections Act, especially EU citizens, some of them who will be removed from the electoral register. So we're going to explain, we're going to walk through the steps of how this is going to affect you. So Maddie, can you take me to third slide, please? There you go. So before we even tell you why you should be considering how the Elections Act is going to affect you, it's always important for us to consider, why are we even talking about voter registration? Why are we encouraging you to stay involved in politics? Firstly, it is a question of participating in democracy. There's so many things that are affecting us on your day-to-day life. It can be the fact that our costs or our bills are rising. It can be that you think that your park needs more lights. It can be the fact that you think that your recycling should be improved. All of those things affect you. But if you don't vote, if you're not voting, if you're not registered to vote, your voice is not going to count. So you really need to make sure that you're there, you're participating in democracy, so that you can have a say on those services and how they affect you. One thing that people don't often know is that when you're registered to vote, it improves your credit score. So for example, when you're going to go buy a new phone, they're going to go check your credit score. If you're registered, that's going to help put you to the green light, which is really important for us whenever we're trying to financially access anything. So if you are eligible to vote, make sure that you do, so that you can improve your credit score through that as well. And finally, this is a Migrant Democracy Project event. Our main goal is to have an immigration system that is fairer, that migrants are represented in politics, and that our voices count towards a fairer immigration system. But if we can't vote, if we're not participating, there aren't that many reasons why politicians should pay attention to us. And too often our voices are not only ignored, but often we are vilified or attacked by governments, by politicians on our rights. So please make sure that you stay registered, so that you can speak up for us collectively, and that we can act towards that social change that we desperately need. Next. Now, this is where we start it becomes interesting. So the voter eligibility in the UK is quite complex. It depends not only of where you live, but also where you're from and what nation in the UK you live. With the Elections Act, that's only going to become a little bit more complicated. The Elections Act came into law last year, and it's going to affect us on both who can vote. So depending if you're an EU citizen, in which date you arrive in the UK, we're going to come to that in a bit, but also how you vote, and that's about photo ID. And this changes, we can't say for sure at the moment, but we expect that many of them are going to be implemented from 2023 onwards. So that's important for you to start understanding them now. And we're going to now explain to you all of the changes that are coming in. So next, please, Maddie. There you go. Thank you. So we've got this a bit complicated table of eligibility in the UK. So if you start at the very far right with or the bottom corner there, bottom right corner, UK parliamentary elections. So when it comes to general elections, as in when you're electing a member of parliament who stays in Westminster and makes laws at the national level, only British, Irish, and Commonwealth citizens have the right to vote. Now, when we start getting towards the other end of the table, when we're talking about local elections, it becomes a little bit more complicated. So when I say local elections, I'm talking about elections for councillors, for mayors, for police and crime commissioners, and a few others. Councillors are the ones who are having your local authorities. So those who you pay council tax to, they have councillors who represent you at a local level and make decisions on things like housing, road, cycle lanes, and those things that you see on a day-to-day basis. And that's where it becomes a little bit more complicated. So until now, before the Elections Act was introduced, British, Irish, Commonwealth, and EU citizens have the right to register to vote in local elections in England and Northern Ireland. And then after the Elections Act, which has now been implemented, which has become a law, EU citizens who live in England and Northern Ireland but enter the UK until the 31st of December 2020 will continue having that right to vote in local elections. However, if you are an EU citizen who entered the UK from 2021 onwards, so from the 1st of January 2021 onwards, you will only have the right to vote if your country of origin has secured a bilateral voting rights agreement with the UK. And I'll come to who has those bilateral agreements in a bit. However, you can see, so again, like just to recap, general elections, British, Irish, Commonwealth, continue voting. In local elections, if you are an EU citizen, let's give an example. If you're an Italian citizen who entered the UK in 2017, and now you have pre-settled or settled status, and you live in England and Northern Ireland, you will continue being able to register to vote and vote in your local elections. If, however, you've got an Italian friend coming to the UK this year, tomorrow, to start studying in the UK, they will not be able to register to vote because they enter the UK after from the 1st of January onwards. Maddie, can you take me to the next slide, please?
Is it coming up?
And oh, there you go. And just to recap again, so if you live in Scotland and Wales, the change of which EU citizen has the right to vote and which one doesn't does not affect you, because in Scotland and Wales, they have a system called residence-based voting rights, which means that as long as you're a resident there, no matter what your nationality is, you will have the right to vote in the local and devolved national elections. So the devolved national elections there are not for Parliament, are not for a member of Parliament, but are for the Scottish Parliament, which is just manages Scottish issues, and for the Welsh Assembly as well. So if you are from Brazil or America or Ukraine and you live in one of these nations, you can register to vote. But again, if you live in England or Northern Ireland, then you won't have that right to vote in the local elections if you enter the UK from 2021 onwards. Next. But I mentioned before as well that if you are an EU citizen who entered the UK from 2021 onwards, but you come from a country that has a bilateral voting rights agreement with the UK, you will continue being able to vote. At the moment, these bilateral voting rights agreements have only been secured with Luxembourg, Poland, Spain, and Portugal. So again, imagine that if you are a Romanian citizen who entered the UK in 2021, you will not be able to register to vote. If you are, however, a Spanish citizen who entered the UK in 2021, you will continue being able to register to vote. We don't know if the government will continue securing more bilateral agreements. This list might be updated, but at the moment, this is what we have. Next one, please. So another thing that will affect us, and this does not matter where you live, it does not matter what election I'm talking about, so either general or local election, you are going to have to take a photo ID with you when you go vote. To many of us, this is something relatively normal because, for example, I'm from Brazil and I've always had to take photo ID with me to the polling station. But to many, it will not be, it's going to be a new thing that they will have to get used to. So we're definitely informing as many people as possible so that they can continue voting. As I said before in the first slide, it's really important that we do, that we don't lose that vote. So we expect again that from May 2023, the need of photo ID will be implemented. So next time that you might have to go vote, you might need to take a passport with you, a driving license, a biometric immigration document, a blue badge, or a national identity card from an EEA state as well. If you're not able to afford a new photo ID for whatever reason, local authorities, your local authority will be able to issue you with a certificate. Those are not ready at the moment. Local authorities are implementing that system, but you will definitely be ready by the next time that you have to vote. But the main thing to remember from this is that if you next time that you vote, make sure that you take a photo ID from that accepted list that you can find on the government website as well, and all of the details will be available when we publish this online later. Next one, please, Maddie. Okay, so now that you know who can continue voting and how you're going to vote, we're going to walk quickly through the steps of how to register to vote. There are more detailed videos online of how you do the registration, but this is just a quick guide for you to know where to start with. Next one, please. So first thing that you would do is that you visit www.gov.uk/register to vote, or you can just search on Google register to vote, and that will take you to the same page. You would scroll down and you'd click start now. Next one. And then you'd have to answer a number of questions about yourself, including your name, your date of birth, your address, your nationality, and you will also be asked about your national insurance number. However, if you don't have a national insurance number, you can still register to vote. You can click, there will be a box that says, I don't have a national insurance number. You click that and you just explain in a few words why you don't have a national insurance number. For example, it might be that you have recently arrived in the UK and you've just applied for a national insurance number, but it's not being processed yet. And you still be able to register to vote. The local authority might need to ask for a little bit more evidence about you, such as a copy of your passport, but you can definitely still register. So don't lose that opportunity just because you see that box talking about the national insurance number. Next. Cool. So now that you've learned how to register, we're just going to quickly tell you a little bit about our campaign, Our Home, Our Vote, which basically, as you've seen, quite a few people don't have that right to vote in local elections. 1.5 million people do not have the right to vote in England and Northern Ireland. And as an organization, Migrant Democracy Project is asking that right to vote be extended to every resident, just like it's already the case in Scotland and Wales. If that was the case, 1.5 million people would gain that right to vote, which we believe would be really important to make sure that everyone can fully participate in democracy. So as an organization, we are doing both the job of explaining to you how you can participate in democracy now, and also making sure that we can make democracy more accessible to every resident, no matter where they're from. And we're quite excited that a majority of the public agree that everyone should have a right to vote. Next. And the way that we've been doing this is if you're more interested, visit ourhomeourvote.co.uk. And you can find out more about these changes or how you can continue campaigning with us. Recently, we've done events in Parliament where we've taken a group of migrants who do not have the right to vote to advocate for why they should have the right to vote. And there's a campaign happening across the world as well of many local authorities campaigning for their residents to have full voting rights. But as I said, if you're more interested in that, you can visit ourhomeourvote.co.uk to find out more. Next. So finally, now that you know all of this, go register to vote, go vote. This was my first speaking slot in English, and you're going to hear in a few other languages as well now. So thank you.